You might have seen day in the life of an investment banker type videos before, but this video here is different. This is about private equity, not investment banking, and it's a whole different ballgame. Now that I've left private equity, I can give you the raw, unfiltered truth.
And breathe out.
I'm going to try to tell you just about everything you might do as a private equity analyst or an associate, which will be much more helpful to you if you're trying to break into the industry. If that sounds good, then let's dive straight into the video. At a high level, private equity is about pooling money from investors into a fund, and then using that money to invest into privately owned companies. Those are companies that you and I can't buy on the public stock exchange. Each fund will have a specific investment mandate. For example, the fund might only invest into European software companies. However, the goal is always the same. Grow the companies that you invested in and generate a return for your investors through dividends and eventually selling the companies for more than you bought them for. So what does a workday look like? Working hours vary massively. Some days I was done and logged off by 7 or 8 p.m, whereas others, especially when I was on a live deal, I was staying in the office past midnight. Culture will of course vary from firm to firm, but in my past experience it was very much as long as you get your work done, we don't really care how and where you get your work done from. As an example, as long as there wasn't something urgent on, I would always try and step out of the office and get some fresh air at lunchtime, whereas other people would choose to power through so that they could go home ASAP. In terms of work perks, you could expense food and get an Uber home as long as you're working in the office past 9 p.m. But to be honest, there were some days where I was sort of done by 7 or 8 p.m, but it didn't really make sense for me to go home at that point. So I would just stay the extra hour, maybe prep for the next day so I could get those perks. The other thing to note is that even though I might have been working till say midnight, I may not have been super productive during all that time. I might have been doing tasks like checking my emails or reading the news, or maybe even taking a break and going to the gym. On the flip side though, even when you're not working, a lot of times your mind is still thinking about work. And that's because you know deep down that at any point in time, you could receive an email marked urgent that you need to attend to. Okay, so what do you actually do in private equity? Well, work streams in private equity can broadly be split into 3 categories. The first is origination and acquisition. The second is asset management. The third is sale. Together, these 3 stages are what is described as a fund lifecycle. Often PE firms will have different funds at different stages. So as a junior, you'll most likely still get to experience all 3 areas. Let's now go into more detail about each of these work streams. But before I do, I want to give you a quick aside about how PE teams actually work. A PE firm may have multiple different investment teams. For example, I was in the digital infrastructure team, but there were also teams covering utilities and transport as well. Within each team, you'll have roles ranging from analyst all the way to director, with more than one person at most levels. However, for any given investment, there's not normally more than 3 or 4 people on it. As a result, you have fairly limited interaction, work-wise at least, with your fellow analysts and associates. Now, if you think a career in private equity or investment banking might be for you, you might want to go check out my free CV, cover letter, and video interview guide. I'll leave the link in the description. Okay, so work stream number 1, origination, acquisition, and deals. This is all about finding companies that fit your investment criteria and which you also believe have good potential to grow. So how do we actually find those companies? Well, in a lot of cases, investment bankers who've been hired by companies looking to sell will approach more senior members of the team. They'll send across a short teaser as well as an NDA. And if they like the look of that opportunity,
I'm in.
That's when the analyst or an associate will get involved. What you might do is help get the NDA signed and then send it back to the investment bank so that they can release more information about the company. Whilst you're waiting for that information to be released, you might start doing your own public research to see what's publicly available. Once further information is received from the investment bank, you might start working through it, making a note of the key investment highlights, and then sending a summary to the rest of the deal team. If after that, the team still thinks it could be a good investment opportunity, you might start to put together a small, simple model and work alongside the VP to produce a presentation to deliver to the IC. So to begin with, the IC might just receive a high-level memo, but if they like the opportunity, they might ask you to go away, do some more detailed analysis. They'll then give you your blessing to submit a non-binding offer. So the non-binding offer, or NBO, is probably the next thing that you'll start helping to draft. If your NBO is accepted, you then move on to the next next phase where you'll receive a lot more information from the selling party to work through. Key contracts, debt documents, board packs, the whole works. So at this stage of the deal, the private equity firm will probably increase the size of the deal team, so you might start working with more analysts or associates. And the PE firm will also probably hire external consultants to assist you in working through all this information. You will work on incorporating any new information into your financial models and also in preparing updates for the IC. Finally, as a junior, you're probably also going to be responsible for a fair few admin tasks. Because there's so much going on in such a short space of time, this is probably the most hectic, crazy, and chaotic life in PE probably ever gets. Assuming that your team, after all of this research, is still comfortable to proceed with buying the company, you start working with lawyers to draft the binding offer and other legal documents. Only once all of these are cleared will the deal actually go through and the PE firm buys the company. That then takes us nicely to asset management. Now, of course, your job doesn't just finish with buying the company. It's then your responsibility to execute your investment plan. Now that you bought the company, directors from your PE firm, in most cases, will take up seats on the board so that they can oversee strategy. But before any boards take place, the analyst/associate alongside the VP will go through any board materials in order to summarize it and flag any key changes or concerns to that director. On a more day-to-day basis, the analyst or an associate with an asset management will monitor financial performance and KPIs, they'll update financial projections and models for the latest business updates, and they'll also track the performance of the business against that initial investment plan.
You're completely sure of the math.
Look at him. That's my quant.
Your what?
My quantitative. My math specialist. Look at him. You notice anything different about him? Look at his face.
That's pretty racist.
Look at his eyes. I'll give you a hint. His name's Yang. He won a national math competition in China. He doesn't even speak English. Yeah, I'm sure of the math.
Another responsibility is to write quarterly and annual updates for the investors in the fund, as well as for the investment committee, letting them know how that company is performing. Although this part of PE is probably a little less exciting and slower paced than the acquisition stage, it's a large part of where private equity companies actually make their return, so it's super important. At some point, it will be time to sell the company so that you can return the money back to investors. But before you can even do that, you first have to decide whether the company has reached its maximum value. For example, if you think that the company you've invested into might face more competition or regulatory challenges going forward, now might be the best time to sell. As an analyst or an associate, you'll probably be modeling all those different exit scenarios, playing around with exit multiples, exit dates, and seeing what your return would be in all of those different cases. If your team does decide that now is the right time to sell, then you'll probably reach out to an investment bank to help you with the sale process. You'll be working with the investment bank as well as the management of the company to produce sell-side materials, highlighting the company's financial achievements, performance, and potential future opportunities that it could capture. You'll then go through the whole offer process again, but this time from the POV of the seller. This means that you'll work to coordinate responses to any questions you might receive, provide any additional information, and work alongside the VP and director to help negotiate purchase price and deal structure. As before, once you work through all those legal documents, the money changes hands and you've finally officially completed the sale of your company, thereby realizing a return. And so that's it. That's pretty much everything you might do as a private equity analyst or an associate. And on any given day, you might be doing a mix of all those various tasks. If you found this video useful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more content. And if you want to see a video on the best resources to get into investment banking, be sure to check this video here. Thanks guys, and see you soon.